It's the amazing Rico Brogna podcast with your host, Evan Roberts.
19 freaking runs. That's an ass whooping. Welcome to episode number 472 of a Rico Brogna. This is the series recap, Rico Brogna, as the New York Mets for the first time this season don't win a series. They don't lose a series. They split a 4-game series against the Washington Nationals. And what was needed on Monday afternoon was exactly what the Mets delivered on Monday afternoon. Because in game 3 of this series on Sunday, I don't care what your record is, anytime you blow a 7-1 lead in the 7th inning or later, which is exactly what the Mets did, and we went through all the details, all the trials and tribulations of game 3 on our last episode, 471. So go back to that if you want to hear a breakdown of that horror show. But what the Mets needed was an ass whooping. What the Mets needed was a response. You know, the one thing you didn't want to have happen after losing the way they did on Sunday was to let it spiral, was to let it steamroll. And there were a couple of things they did so brilliantly in game 4 of this series that avoided this steamroll. I'll surprise you with the first thing I'm going to bring up, and that's Griffin Canning. Griffin Canning went out. He threw a lot of pitches. I get it. It wasn't easy, and twirled 5 scoreless innings. The best way to kill any momentum that the Washington Nationals may have gained by their dramatic comeback is to get good starting pitching. And the Mets have been incredibly consistent all season long in terms of getting consistent starting pitching. May not go deep into games like we saw with Canning, but 5 scoreless innings gives you a chance to see this offense cook. And that was the other thing that I thought was needed after a brutal loss like they suffered on Sunday. Come out and score a lot of runs. Now, a trivia question for those loyal Rico Brogna listeners. On episode 471, I actually named a very specific number, an absurd number, at least I thought, in how many runs the Mets should go out and score against Trevor Williams and the Washington Nationals. And I said, here's the perfect response. Go out there, if you're this Met offense, which did nothing the last 7 innings of Sunday's game, and pound the Nationals. And I said a specific number. Can you guess what that specific number was? I could promise you it wasn't 19. I did not have 19 coming. Now, Hoff, I'll ask you, because producing the Rico Brogna and contributing to the Rico Brogna, it ain't easy. And it's impossible for you to hear every single word. But, trivia question. If you get it right, I'll give you an acknowledgement in my next book. I'm just kidding.
Oh, thanks.
You got that anyway.
Yeah.
Do you remember how many runs I called on the Met offense to score in Monday's game against the Washington Nationals?
I don't, but I'm going to say 11.
Very good guess. The number was 12.
Oh!
You were right there. I said, hey, if you're this Met offense coming off a game in which I know you scored 7 runs, you scored enough to win Sunday, but the bullpen blew it, the Soto missed fly ball. We all know what happened. Go out and score 12 runs. And little did I know that your boy Brandon Nimmo would be responsible for 9 of them. So from here on out, this game against the Nationals, Pete, will forever be known as the Brandon Nimmo game.
I mean, and thank you. But now here's the problem with the game like this is that his numbers skyrocket. Everyone gets all excited. He's back and he can go for an offer for the next 5 games. And his numbers are still going to look halfway decent because he got 9 RBIs today. I mean, that's just stupid. That's 2 weeks worth of RBIs. I don't care, especially for him. That is outrageous what he did. But they beat the living piss out of the Nationals, so that was great to see. And for anybody that sits there and say, "Oh, what are you gonna say about Brandon Nimmo now?" I'm happy he did that. The problem is it's been inconsistent. He hasn't done that all season long, so I'm not pissed. Just where is this on the regular basis?
Well, you are right about one thing because we are still early enough in the season where 4 hits may not alter your batting average in a major way, but it does alter your overall stats. So right now, as the Mets have now played 29 games this season, 29 games. We're 29 games in. Brandon Nimmo is second on the team in home runs with 21. He's got 9 more RBIs than Juan Soto. In fact, he almost matched Juan Soto's season total. Juan's got 12 for the season. Nimmo had 9 in one game, but he's tied for the team lead in home runs. Pete Alonso with 6, Brandon Nimmo with 6. And like I mentioned, he's driven in 21 runs. His average, his on base, his OPS still leave a lot to be desired, but you're right. A 9 RBI, 2 home run game can alter your stats in a major, major way. And that's going to be one challenge we're going to face here on Rico Brogna. What we have done throughout the start of this season is we pick a Rico star of the series. In fact, we're now calling it the Rico I'm the Man Now star of the series in honor of Jordani Valdesman. And we usually sit here at the end of a series, and it's pretty straightforward who the star of the series is. This 4-gamer against Washington featured so many ups and downs. It featured some pretty good contributions from a lot of different guys. But Brandon Nimmo so padded his numbers in game 4 that his overall series numbers make him a real strong candidate to be the star of the series. But the truth is, until this game, he didn't do much in the series. So I've got about 6 or 7 candidates we will go through in a couple of minutes when we do name our Rico star of the series. But as far as this game is concerned, there were a lot of great positives. Jeff McNeil is a major positive. Jeff McNeil hits that home run. Jeff McNeil has the triple. Jeff McNeil also has the sacrifice fly, which is very productive. Give me a sacrifice fly. Give me that productive out that drives in a run, which he did to make it 2-0. Francisco Alvarez has hit since coming back in the 3 games he played. He had that double early. 5 really strong innings out of Griffin Canning, though his pitch count got up there. And then you saw the offense completely break the game open. The Brandon Nimmo 3-run home run, making it 6-0. The monstrous 7th inning in which Nimmo hit the grand slam. And Lindor got hit by a pitch twice in the same inning, which Gary Cohen found to be the most fascinating thing ever. Like, how often does that happen? And I'm thinking to myself, probably a lot, Gar. I don't think it's that uncommon for a guy to get hit in the same inning twice. And by uncommon, obviously it doesn't happen every other week. But in terms of comparing it to the Fernando Tatis Chan-Ho Park double grand slam in 1 inning, like, that's a lot rarer than getting hit twice in the same inning, because getting hit twice in the same inning just means the same outcome happens twice. To hit multiple grand slams in the same inning, you not only need to hit 2 home runs in an inning, which is difficult in its own right, but you need the bases loaded for you. You need a lot going your way. So I found it humorous how enamored Gary Cohen was with the idea that Lindor got hit twice in the same inning. The negative was Jose Urena. When Jose Urena comes in to pitch the 7th inning with a big lead. At that point, it was 11-0, I think, at that point. No, I think it was higher than that. I think it was 15-0 at that point. I'm losing count because Max Kranick gave a really good, solid inning when he replaced Griffin Canning in the 6th inning. But remember, when Griffin Canning comes in to pitch the 6th inning, it's still, at that point, it's 6-0. But remember, they had just scored the 3 runs. Kranick was coming into the game either way. Circle of Truff stuff. 3-0 game, he's still coming in. But it was 11-0 when Urena finally came in, and he pitched a fine 7th inning. They get 4 more runs in the 8th inning, so now it's 16-0, and he can't get the last out in the 8th inning. And as I'm driving home, consuming the Met game in a very safe way, all I'm asking from Jose Urena is just get enough outs where you don't scare Mendoza to warm anyone else up in this bullpen. I'm not concerned that the Mets are going to blow a 16-0 lead. I'm not that nuts. I'm not Franking the Tanking it to that level. But I'm concerned about using the bullpen because God knows they came into this game with a short pen to begin with. And who knows about the availability of Edwin Diaz. Mendy said all the right things. I take that on a day-by-day basis. Let me see Edwin Diaz available. Because the more I think about it, it didn't make a lot of sense for him not to be available on Sunday. So you already know Stanek's not available. Buteau is not available. The Mets are clearly shorthanded. A.J. Minter's gone on the IL, so he's gone. So I'm looking at Urena, and I'm saying 2 things. First of all, you can rule him out from starting Wednesday's game, thank God. And number 2, bro, just find a way to not F up enough for Mendy to have to come out and actually use another arm in the bullpen. At 16-5 or 15-5 at that point, I lose count. I was even thinking, put a freaking position player in. I got a big enough lead where I'm not worried. Find a way to not use more of the bullpen. And I guess to the credit of Jose Urena, after he gave up those 5 runs in the 8th inning, he was able to get 3 outs in the 9th inning. And for anyone still learning about Juan Soto and saying, boy, that Juan Soto, he's a stat patter. How about the fact that he came out of the game in the 7th inning for Ozokar as a pinch hitter when Soto could have very well said, keep me up here. I'm going to pad my batting average. I'm going to pad some RBI numbers. Look, Juan Soto isn't going to get a lot of credit because he didn't drive any runs in. He's not going to get a lot of credit because he had the misjudged fly ball in Sunday's game. But Juan Soto actually had a very productive 4-game series. He had 2 hits in 3 of the 4 games outside of game 2 in which he took an 0-4. And that was the game the Mets won 2-0. So the 0-4 didn't matter. Soto ended up getting on base 9 times in 15 plate appearances. So he was on base a lot. Granted, he hit the ball over the fence. He didn't drive any runs in, but he was productive. So we saw a productive series out of Juan Soto. More on him later because he actually is a candidate for the Rico Star of the Series. But this was a very satisfying win. It's satisfying because we saw the Mets completely respond from a brutal loss. As much as we get mad with brutal losses, you would think that players are pissed off too, and they responded in an outstanding way, pounding the Nationals by a final score of 19-5. Now let's get to the Rico Star of the Series. Plus, we are going to address something that I know a lot of people in the audience have been asking a lot about, and they're going to finally get the answer. Today's the day to do it, and that is the history between Daniel Murphy and Gary Cohen. Obviously, Daniel called these games. I happen to think he did a pretty good job. I enjoyed his analysis. I enjoyed his sense of humor. I also enjoyed the fact that he's relatively close to playing baseball. He's not that far removed from playing. Like, even just listening to the discussion they had about Urena versus Daniel Murphy, when Murphy said, yeah, the truck told me I'm 0 for 15 in my career against Jose Urena. I figured I would have had a hit or two. It's a reminder that even though maybe it feels like a long time since Murph's been a Met, because it's been 10 years, he's not that far removed from playing baseball. So I think that's cool. I enjoyed Daniel Murphy as the broadcaster, but many have asked, hey, where did the Gary Cohen criticism of Daniel Murphy and calling him a net negative come from? I promise you, right here on today's Rico Brogna, you will get to hear the origin of the Gary Cohen-Daniel Murphy feud. But let's get to the Rico Star of the Series, because this one is a little complicated. So far, throughout this 2025 season, we have anointed Edwin Diaz, Pete Alonso, Max Kranick, Alonso a second time, Kodai Senga, Alonso a third time, and Francisco Lindor is coming off back-to-back Rico Star of the Series against St. Louis and then against Philadelphia. I don't know about you, Pete. I don't know if there's anyone that jumps out at you, but I actually have 7 candidates that I could make a relatively decent argument for the Rico Star of the Series. So before I go through all of them, is there anyone off the top of your head, in your opinion, should win the Rico Star of the Series? The Pete Hoffman endorsement, if you will.
No, but I would award one person with the Anthony Young Award, which is Ryan Stanek, because he was terrible. So dude, I don't know. It was a weird series. The only person that really sticks out to me, because even though they didn't win, he did have a huge triple in game 1 of when the Mets made that comeback and they should have won that game.
Yes.
I think he hit in every game. And then today he had a huge day. Mark Vientos.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because let's start with him. I lean towards Mark Vientos. Now, we're going to talk this through. We're going to go through all the contributions from everybody in this series. But Mark Vientos in game 1 goes 2 for 3, gets a triple, drives in 3 runs. And like you mentioned, that was the triple that if the Mets win that game, if they hold on and win game 1, he's probably more of a lock for this award, because he did come through with this incredibly clutch. Now, he didn't hit the ball all that hard, but he was behind the count 1-2. He put bat on ball. He found a good spot. Dylan Cruz made that leaping attempt. he did come up with a 3-run triple that could have been the game winner. He took a 1 for 4 in game 2, the game they won 2-0. He went 2 for 4 with an RBI in game 3, including the first run driven in. That was a sacrifice fly. And then in this game, he goes 2 for 4 with a home run and 3 RBIs. The problem is, I want to be fair about this, the home run he hit and the last 3 RBIs he got came against a position player. I don't know. And by not just any position player, former Met prospect Ahmed Rosario. So I want to give Vientos his due, and he had a very good series, but I feel like the home run and the last 3 RBIs kind of are hollow. So his total numbers are 7 for 16 with a home run and 7 RBIs. Second most RBIs from anybody in this series besides Nimmo. But if you take away the garbage time home run against the position player, you're really looking at 6 for 15 with no home runs and 4 RBIs. Still good numbers, but I feel like his numbers got enhanced by a garbage time home run off a position player.
I mean, if you really want to go that route too, though, you could also say that he was helped on Friday by the diving Dylan Cruz, who allowed a triple to happen, because if he just played it off a hop, that might have been like an RBI, maybe a 2-run double.
Yeah.
Max.
Yeah, but I'm not doing that. Like, that's baseball. Okay. That happens. I'm just saying the position play. Because here's the thing, and this is the first time we've run into this because the Mets have played a lot of close games. What do you do with the garbage time stats? If this was strictly a stat award, look, let's get to Brandon Nimmo. 6 for 18, 2 home runs, 10 RBIs. That's an incredible 4-game series. The problem is 9 of the RBIs came in one game, and I'll give him the 3-run home run, turning a 3-0 game into a 6-0 game is absolutely, we play the clutch test. That's a clutch home run. You're breaking the game wide open. I'm not comfortable with a 3-0 lead, handing the ball to the bullpen, needing 12 outs. I don't think anybody is. So I would certainly say that 3-run home run was incredibly clutch, but the grand slam was like, all right, I mean, what are we doing?
Well, listen, if he struck out, would that have counted?
Of course.
Okay.
All right.
I'm just saying.
So Mark Vientos, candidate number 1, potential game-winning triple in the opener of this series, hits a kind of garbage time home run in the finale of this series, but overall, 7 for 16, a home run, 7 RBIs. Let's get to Brandon Nimmo. So Brandon Nimmo takes an 0 for 4 in game 2, an 0 for 4 in game 3, but in the opener of this series, Brandon Nimmo delivers the RBI single, the infield hit, right before the Vientos triple. So a very clutch base hit by Brandon Nimmo right before Vientos gets the triple in game 1. Outside of that, he didn't do anything until game 4, where he put together one of the great performances, one of the great single-game performances in the history of the New York Mets, right out of the Carlos Delgado playbook. 4 for 6, 2 home runs, 9 RBIs. I got to tell you, man, and I'm not anti-Nimmo the way you are, Hoff. I have a very tough time handing him the Rico star of the series based on one game. I don't know. He's a candidate. I'm giving the people the numbers. 6 for 18, 2 home runs, 10 RBIs. He went 0 for 8 in the middle of this series. I can't just ignore that.
No, and again, like, it's something where it was a special moment. If this was a moment or a moment of the game type of thing, yeah, of course Brandon Nimmo gets it. We should give him an award for this. He should listen. He was a star of the game. There's no doubt about it.
Oh no doubt. If I was scoring the game, I wasn't because I was on the radio. Brandon Nimmo would have been written down as the star of the game.
Yeah, but and it's nothing that personal against Brandon Nimmo. I can't award him for. It was a 4-game series. It wasn't even a 3-game. It was a 4-game series. He did absolutely nothing going up until today.
I agree. Despite the big numbers, I would still have Vientos ahead of Brandon Nimmo. Let's go to candidate number 3, and I'm talking about Francisco Alvarez. I know that may sound like a surprise, but he goes 1 for 4 in his return from the IL. Okay, great. Good to see you back. He goes 1 for 4 with a home run in game 2. The difference in the game, the Mets win 2-0 on a 2-run home run by Francisco Alvarez. He doesn't play game 3 and then comes back in game 4, the Monday afternoon game we were just talking about, and delivers a huge RBI double early in the game. Before the game got out of hand, Alvarez came up with a huge hit. So it's not the same sample size as the others because he didn't play every game, but 4 for 13, 1 home run, 3 RBIs. I got Francisco Alvarez as a real candidate for the Rico Star of the Series. I think he impacted both wins in a major way. In a major way. 2-run home run in a game they win 2-0. He's the only offense. An early RBI double as the Mets are trying to bounce back from the brutal loss. You guys may think I'm crazy. I'm starting to lean towards Alvarez the more I talk about it, the more I say it out loud. But anyhow, there are more candidates. Let's get to Francisco Lindor. I'm giving him honorable mention. 0 for 4 in the opener. He got on base 3 times in game 2, 3 for 4, 1 for 4 in game 3, and somehow took an 0 for in the finale of this series. But he did get hit twice in the same inning. So it's not Lindor, but a little bit honorable mention considering he had won it in back-to-back weeks. And then finally, we got to give this thought. Juan Soto. That may feel weird because of the missed catch in right field, but he gets on base twice in game 1. He gets on base 4 times in game 3. He gets on base 2 more times in game 4. A combined 7 for 13. He scored 4 runs. He was on base 9 times in 15 plate appearances. Honestly, what hurts Soto to me, why I can't put him over the top, isn't even the lack of RBIs. Because getting on base does have a value. Forget about how much money he makes. That's not the point of this. The defensive miscue really opened up the failure of game 3. And not only that, I know, Hoff, you brought this up 2 Ricos ago on the first blown save by Ryan Stanek. You had that fly ball to right field that I thought was a difficult play, but it was off Soto's glove. So I think that those 2 defensive miscues, which were so impactful, at least one defensive miscue, the other a tricky play he doesn't make, I think almost negates the production, the 7 for 13, 8 for 15 in terms of getting on base at the plate.
Yeah, and again, if he would have put those numbers up in wins, it'd be different. Like he did. I mean, today was a special day for everybody, but he put up those numbers in games where they lost. So they're not as impactful either. That's part of it. And something to go back to, we talk about the defensive plays or non-plays by Juan Soto. Rewind a little bit back to Francisco Alvarez, where you said, the guy in 3 games hit the cover off the ball. He played really well, important stats, important hits, but then he also caught, and the starting pitching did not suffer. That's something that we have to remember.
Oh, and not only that, I'm glad you brought that up about Alvarez and his defense, because he's different than Luis Torrens. Torrens has played great defense. It's not a knock on him. But one thing I got reminded about seeing Alvarez for the first time this series, after not seeing him all year, is his uncanny ability to know when to run out to the mound. The ability to know when to call a timeout. In Edwin Diaz's save in game 2, the game where Alvarez hit the home run, there was a moment where Alvarez had complete control, called timeout, ran to the mound, calmed Edwin Diaz down. And so there's no stat for this. There's no way to measure it, but it's a reminder getting to watch him, because you almost forget. It's been so long since we watched him catch. He has a great command for knowing when to call timeout and knowing when to calm down his pitcher. So the more we talk this through, I've eliminated Lindor, Soto, and Nimmo. Right now, it's Mark Vientos and it's Francisco Alvarez, believe it or not. But I got 2 more candidates for you. Ooh. One of which is Reed Garrett. Reed Garrett provided some very good bullpen work early in this series. Pitched a scoreless inning in game 1, which, again, could have been big if the Met comeback was completed. Unfortunately, that did not happen. And also pitched a key scoreless inning in game 2 of the series. He pitched a scoreless 7th inning. So I give Reed Garrett a little bit of credit for that. The other guy I got to mention is Klay Holmes. And I'll tell you the reason why I'm bringing Klay up. Klay Holmes pitched 5 scoreless innings. And I thought he was the most dominant we've seen from him. But it's easy to say, come on, at 5 scoreless innings, like, is that really enough? Where I give Klay a lot of credit was the awkwardness of that game in terms of the rain delay, the delay to start. Then you have a 46-minute rain delay in the bottom of the first inning. So here's a guy who's a converted starting pitcher, faces the first 2 batters of the game, Now there's a rain delay. Now all of a sudden, he's sitting around waiting. He then has to come back out and navigate not just the rest of the inning, but hey, can you throw 5 scoreless innings or keep having to go to the bullpen really early? And so even though he only went 5, I think a part of the reason he went 5 is the awkwardness of the start and the stop. And I think considering how important it is for this Met rotation to go deep into games, and while 5 innings isn't deep into games, it's deeper than going 2 innings, which it could have been. Because I'll tell you right now, during that rain delay, I didn't know if Klay Holmes was going to come out to pitch. This is a converted reliever. I don't know what Carlos Mendoza is thinking. It's April. We're going to be careful. We're going to be cautious. So the fact that Klay came back out and then went out and threw 5 scoreless innings, I give him a lot of credit. So those are my candidates for the Rico I'm the man now star of the series. A lot of candidates in a 4-game split with the Washington Nationals.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you hit everybody. I don't think there's anybody you missed out on, unless you're going to say that like maybe whoever's in charge of the pitching land, because the starting pitching still continues to dominate. I mean, it's getting ridiculous. The low ERA and low WHIP that these starting pitchers are putting up. I mean, Tyler McGill is like a 1.7?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Crazy.
That's stupid. This is getting stupid now. Again, they're not going extremely deep into games. We're not going to the 8th inning. We're not going into like a complete game territory. But still, the fact that you can go out there every 5th or 6th game and give 5 to 6 solid innings, it's pretty impressive.
No doubt. Starting pitching continues to be great. It continues to be great. And Tyler McGill, who probably had the weakest pitching line of the 4 because he allowed 3 earned runs, was probably the best. I mean, he pitched into the 7th inning, and unfortunately, the defensive miscue and Jose Butto struggles were the ones that kind of brought that pitching line up a little bit. So you're right. Starting pitching continues to be great. I'm actually very conflicted. To me, it comes down to Ventos versus Alvarez. And I kind of want to say Alvarez. I do. The 2-run home run in a game in which they win 2-0. He's literally the only offense they have. And he probably got the most clutch hit of game 4. So I think he got the 2 most clutch hits in the 2 games they won. It's also his return from the IL. I commend him for what he did with Diaz in game 2 when he calmed him down at the right time. And I'm not killing Ventos, but that home run, the 3-run home run at the end, I mean, it's off Amador Rosario. I don't know. So I lean towards Alvarez, but Hoff, I'll let you be the final decider on this. Francisco Alvarez, Mark Ventos, the Rico I'm the man now star of the series. Go ahead.
I love Mark Ventos, but I will say the return of Francisco Alvarez is a blessing. I was nervous that he wasn't going to be able to be as good as he was in the past. I mean, last year was actually a very disappointing season for Francisco Alvarez. So to see him come back in this way in 3 games, hit every single game, be fantastic behind the dish, let's give it to Francisco Alvarez for his return and and specifically to help out Edward Diaz, like you said too, man. Like, we needed that win. We needed the 2 wins that we got, and it was a lot of it because of Francisco Alvarez. So we'll go Francisco Alvarez.
Congratulations, Francisco Alvarez. You are the man now, the Rico star of the series. So Francisco and every Met fan out there, celebrate your highlights with Mio Sparkling Sake, a true crowd pleaser, light, bubbly, and easy to enjoy. Whether you're at Citi Field or your favorite spot, ask for Mio Sparkling Sake by name, a new tradition served chill, imported from Japan, official sake of Rico Brogna. Enjoy responsibly. Before we get to your emails and before we look ahead to the series coming up against the Arizona Diamondbacks, including trying to answer the question of who the starting pitcher should be on Wednesday, I do want to answer a question that many people have asked over the years, and that is about Daniel Murphy and Gary Cohen. So I want to take you back to 2015. Obviously, the Mets had a wonderful postseason. Daniel Murphy was incredible. And the big decision that the Mets were going to have to make during the offseason was not just trying to re-sign Yoenis Cespedes, which I didn't think they had a chance to do, but are they going to re-sign Daniel Murphy? Joe Beningo, my radio partner, he'll always be my radio partner, was adamant. Bro, how are we not bringing this guy back? And I understand why. I mean, Murph had this incredible October. I was a little bit more skeptical, I want to be honest. Like, I liked Daniel Murphy. I like Daniel Murphy, but I didn't believe that his postseason was necessarily the beginning of him being an MVP candidate. I thought it was a great run. It's a small sample size, but much like Cody Ross had a big postseason for the Giants in 2010, I certainly wasn't assuming that Daniel Murphy was going to be a superstar. So in the middle of this postseason run, Joe and I had Gary Cohen on the show. And we spoke to Gary about the possibilities of keeping Daniel Murphy, and it led to Gary's very famous net negative comment. So I bring you back to the midday show, 2015, Beningo and Roberts, Gary Cohen, and we're talking about the idea of bringing back Daniel Murphy.
What about Murphy?
I have no interest.
You have no interest in Murphy?
I got Flores and Herrera, both of them can play second base.
Wow.
I have no interest in bringing back Daniel Murphy.
Really? I'm very surprised to hear you say that.
You watch this guy play every day.
I understand, but he's too good a hitter, and the guy's a tremendous hitter.
He's a nice hitter, and he's hit some home runs lately, but he's not a high on base percentage guy. He's not a big power hitter. He's a good hitter. He's a good hitter. He's a good sixth or seventh hitter in a good lineup. That's what he is. And he hurts you so badly in the field and on the bases and all the craziness. I think it's time to move on.
You know what's funny? About 3 or 4 months ago, I was closer to your opinion. The reason why I'm more into camp of bringing him back is the uncertainty about David Wright. Because you're right about Herrera and Flores. I mean, they are equipped with young players to replace him. Even though David's back, I'm kind of worried about him. I'm worried about him being able to stay healthy, and Murphy at least gives you the flexibility of a guy that can go over and play third base if David gets hurt again.
I don't disagree with that, but Flores can also play third, so I don't think that that's a huge consideration. Look, Murphy's a lovable guy, and he's, but I think he's a net negative, and I've always felt that way.
Wow.
I don't think knowing Sandy Alderson and his view of the situation, I don't think that there's any chance that they resign.
There's a lot there. There's a lot there in terms of the history of the Mets. We're talking about Dilson Herrera and Wilmer Flores and David's injury, but Gary Cohen was rough on Daniel Murphy.
Can I tell you something? And this is part of, I think, my displeasure with Brandon Nimmo and maybe Jeff McNeil, is that there's times where we sit there as Mets fans and overvalue players. And I love this guy. He's a fan favorite, this, that, the other thing. And then there's other people where, like Daniel Murphy, I was a Daniel Murphy guy. And I sat there and I prayed and I begged and I sold myself and sold everybody on why Daniel Murphy was so good and why he needed to return to this team. And everyone was like, nah, he's never going to be anything. He's not that good. He doesn't have a role. He doesn't have this. He doesn't have that. And then he goes and bites it. He kicks our ass. He legitimately was the definition of a Met killer. Whenever he played us, he just shoved it right up for a butt. But the point is we're talking about Wilmer Flores, who, by the way, is having a good career. But Dilson Herrera, we're talking about all these other guys. And it's like you have the piece right there. We can't see it.
But here's what I find fascinating about what you just said about Daniel Murphy. I like Daniel Murphy, but I think there was some extremism in what we heard. Like, Gary was way too negative on him. I mean, I didn't view Daniel Murphy as a net negative. And that's the origin of the net negative comment. It came from that. That was the entire context of it. Like, he was adamant about not bringing him back, and I think he was too harsh on him. But I also thought at the time, and I turned out to be wrong, I'm going to take an L on this, that Daniel Murphy was being overvalued because of a couple of good weeks. If you go back and look at Murphy's stats with the Mets in 2015, in 2014, in 2013, in 2012, he wasn't that good. Like, I'll tell you a secret, Brandon Nimmo destroys him offensively. I'm not even kidding you. He did with the Mets. Don't give me his Nationals numbers. We'll get to that in a second. As a New York Met, Brandon Nimmo, far superior to Daniel Murphy. And oh, by the way, Nimmo, say what you want about his defense, a lot better than Murphy's defense, which I agreed with Gary to a point was not good. What stunned me, and I'm still stunned to this day when talking about Daniel Murphy, was what he did in Washington. You can't tell me you saw that coming. Because of 3 weeks in the playoffs, you thought he was going to hit 322 or 347 and hit 25 home runs when he never hit more than 14? And he's going to drive in 100 runs when he never drove in more than 78? Like, there was no evidence whatsoever that Daniel Murphy was going to morph into a superstar. But I also thought Gary Cohen's assessment that you just heard was way too negative. He acted like he was a losing ball player. He wasn't. Like, he wasn't perfect. But it surprises me, just to get back to you, Hoff, that you loved Daniel Murphy, but you hate Brandon Nimmo. One doesn't. I don't understand that one.
So it's not a hate Brandon Nimmo thing. I think we overvalue Brandon Nimmo, and the reason why I was so on Daniel Murphy is because I thought that him and Kevin Long really worked hard on an approach, and in the playoffs we saw it work. And he was locked in. And I'm like, I need to see that again. And when I saw the contract that he signed, the Oliver Perez contract, 3 for 36, and going, this is what the Nationals took Daniel Murphy from us for? Like, we couldn't counter that. We couldn't say, hey, we'll match that offer. Like, he wasn't gonna cost a lot of money. And I thought that was adjusted. That was a good offer. And that was something that could have played well. And for Kevin Long and him to be together, to keep that going, would have been special. Listen, Kevin Long made a lot of Yankee hitters great. He made Daniel Murphy great. That's really what happened.
If Daniel Murphy stays with the Mets in 2016 and he doesn't go to the Nationals, a lot of things are different because you're not just taking away from Washington, where Murphy finished second in the MVP voting, but you're adding to the Mets. It was a mistake to let him go. I preferred bringing him back. But I still look at what he ended up doing in Washington as an all-time shock. And I do wonder if Gary and Daniel Murphy ever talked to each other about that comment. Because it always felt like that criticism was so biting that it was like over the top. That almost Gary hated Daniel Murphy. But they get along really well on the broadcast. I thought they had great chemistry. And I enjoyed it. So there you go. That's the background. Just for anyone who's always wondered, the net negative comment. That's where it came from. Beningo and Roberts, Gary Cohen 10 years ago. Let's get to some of your emails, the ricob@gmail.com. Drew in Asbury Park writes, I don't think there's a better two-game sample that epitomizes the highs and lows of a baseball season. From the extreme low of Sunday's meltdown to the offensive barrage on Monday afternoon, this is a good reminder to try and keep ourselves from riding too far in either emotional direction following a terrible loss or an incredible win, especially early in the season. Advice to self, take a deep breath, enjoy the ride. The New York Mets have the best record in baseball, LFGM. Absolutely. Well said. That's what baseball does. Scott writes, player of the series. I hate to be that guy, but you cannot give Brandon Nimmo the player of the series. As great and needed as he was on Monday, you can't have the mental lapse in the first loss and the at-bats in the second loss and win the award. The only possible answer is Francisco Alvarez, who had only RBIs in wins and the go-ahead RBI in the other. Well, Scott, you'll be very happy. Francisco Alvarez is your star of the series. Steven writes, Evan and Pete, I'm not sure if you saw, but after today's game, the Mets actually made a trade with the Nationals to improve their bullpen. They traded Jose Urena for Ahmed Rosario. The best bullpen in the majors just got better. Very funny. Ahmed Rosario pitching was a sad state of affairs. I had a buddy of mine text that MLB should have a new rule. There should be an emergency pitcher waiting in the stands. So if the game ever gets that ugly, that emergency pitcher, like a former college pitcher, can just come in, throw BP, so we don't have to watch a position player lob it in. Obviously, I hate that idea, but I will admit, watching a position player like Ahmed Rosario just lob the ball in it's not pretty. Glenn writes, Brandon Nimmo is now on pace for 34 home runs and 117 RBIs Think about that for a second. You want to think about that, Hoff? 34 and 117.
Who is this, Brendan Nimmo?
That's his pace. His pace is 34 home runs and 117 RBIs.
Dude, every 10 games, he better be on like this. Otherwise, he's screwed. He's never going to do it. Listen, if he hits 34 home runs, puts up those type of numbers, that's great. Like, I'm never going to criticize that. I'm never going to be upset when someone overperforms. I think that people take my frustration with Brandon Nimmo and really think I want bad things to happen to the guy. That's not the case.
Nah.
I want him to bat 280. I want him to go back to being on base 40% of the time. He doesn't do that anymore.
Just remember, and we should make a t-shirt, even though we still sell the Rico t-shirts. If you want to buy them, they're wherever you download your podcast. You can see the link or on YouTube. But I should make a t-shirt that says, I'd rather be happy and wrong than right and miserable. I feel the exact same way. Even if I have a negative opinion about the team I root for, I want to be wrong because I want to be happy.
Yeah.
Ron Shea writes, the whole talk of the offseason was about vibes. A great vibe is winning Monday's game like they did. Losing the way they did on Sunday is a real kick in the balls. But if you win the next day, it's just another loss. Over the course of 162 games, every team has a few really bad losses. Great win today to split the series. First team to 20 wins. Let's go cut off the snake's head. Of course, the Arizona Diamondbacks come to town on Tuesday. Manzo writes, I'm not going to lie. I would have loved if Mark Vientos laid down a bunt to give Brandon Nimmo a shot at 10-plus RBIs. The chance of a double play would have been slim, and even if it happened, you'd still have a guy on third with 2 outs. If the bunt popped up, worst case, you'd have runners on first and second with 1 out. A single probably would have been all Nimmo needed. Do you think they knew he tied a record? And if they did, do you think they would have played it differently to give him a shot? I mean, someone has to look it up, right? Thoughts? So Brandon Nimmo said after the game he had no idea that he tied him at record. That's number one. And number two, I don't think you ever want to make a farce of the game or a farce of your at-bats. You know, Mark Vientos hit a 3-run home run, and we can sit here on the Rico and talk about, well, it was off a position player. We can say all that. But at the end of the day, when the final numbers are tallied, you're going to see final numbers, and we're not going to splice it by saying he had a home run off of a position player, right? So if you're Mark Vientos, you're going up there to drive some runs in. You know, you're going to get paid based of that. In fact, it matters more to Vientos than it does Nimmo, who's already got his contract. So I think number one, and you got this from Daniel Murphy because I thought about it at the time. Do you remember when Pete Alonso hit a ground ball, a weak ground ball to shortstop that he beat out for an infield hit? It was 11-0. So I don't know how many people remember it. But he was ruled out. He was clearly safe. And Mendy challenged it. And I know the thought from some people watching would be like, why are you challenging this? It's 11-0 or whatever the score was at the time. May have been 15-0. I mean, it may have been worse, but it was a blowout. And Daniel Murphy said it best, and I thought the same thing. You never give up a hit. Hits are tough to come by. And you don't calculate where they came from at the end of the season. So it would be a disservice to your player to basically say, yeah, well, we're up by a lot. I'm not going to challenge it. No, every hit matters. And so I think in the case of Mark Vientos, you're not bunting so Brandon Nimmo could set a record that most fans don't even remember. It's not a hollowed record. We remember Delgado having a massive game against the Yankees, but does anybody say, I want to go to the ballpark to see someone break Carlos Delgado's RBI record? So I get what you're saying, Monzo. You wanted to see it happen. I don't think a player would ever think that way.
Well, I have a question for you too, because here's the thing. Earlier in the game, when the game it started getting out of hand a little bit, and it was Soto was on second, Lindor's on third, Alonso's up, he hits the ball up the middle, Lindor scores, and they hold up Soto from scoring, and so Alonso and Lindor. To me, I thought they could have sent Soto, and that's an RBI for Alonso. Isn't that the same thing? Like, don't you want to, rather than holding up Soto, don't you want to, if you have an opportunity to score, but they're like, that's the right idea. There's no reason to send Soto here. No outs, blah, blah, blah. Why not?
I don't think that's about running up the score, though, anymore. I think it's about risking injury, knowing you've got a chance to drive those runs in anyway. I think it's just being conservative at the time. You're not giving it up. Like, not challenging a clear infield hit. There's no reason not to challenge other than I'm tired. I want to go home. But I think holding up a runner at third is more, hey, I'm playing it safe. Because a lot of bad things can happen if you're sending Juan Soto around third. So I do think it's a little bit different. Okay. Every at-bat matters. Every RBI matters. Steve Johnson writes, a satisfying split. Yes, losing those 2 games in Washington the way they did hurt, but what I thought was more important is the way the team responded each time. They went out there and won on Saturday and then pounded the Nationals on Monday. Yes, this could have been easily an 11-game winning streak, but anytime you get a split of a 4-game series on the road, you take it. My only concern is that the starters need to go deeper into games. The bullpen is being used too much, and while they pitched incredibly well to start the season, it's starting to catch up to them a bit. Steve, you're 1,000% right. Getting 5 innings out of your starters are not sustainable because now you're asking for 12 outs every day. And as we've seen over the last few days, you start to not have guys available because they're pitching all the time. Now, luckily, the Mets are going to go into this series against the Arizona Diamondbacks with a lot of rest. A lot of rest. Jose Urena should be sent out. Like, I doubt he's on the roster. In fact, he'll be sent out for whoever they're going to start on Wednesday. More on that in a minute. But you have Edwin Diaz, who will now have had a few days off. Reed Garrett will have had 3 days off. Jose Butto will come off a day off. Kranick, they stopped early enough to where his availability isn't going to be impacted. So they should go in to this Arizona series with full bullpen availability, or at least close to full bullpen availability. But it adds up. It really does, especially in a stretch, which the Mets are now in, where they're playing every day for over a week. You know, when they started this series against Washington, they were beginning another 13-game, 13-day stretch that also features a lot of travel. You go from Washington to New York to St. Louis to Arizona. Like, there's a lot of traveling going on. Like, even the homestand, it's not really a homestand. It's a 3-game series, just like this road trip wasn't really a road trip. It was a 4-game series. Now, in terms of the pitching, so we've talked about this for a while now, that if the Mets are going to try to ensure that Kodai Senga doesn't pitch on regular rest, 4 days of rest, they were going to need a starter on April 30th. And that's exactly what we're headed towards. David Peterson is going to make the start in the opener against Eduardo Rodriguez. Senga will pitch the afternoon game on Thursday, and that leaves Wednesday as a question. There are 2 options, really one option. Option number 1 is Brandon Waddell, who I think they're going to go to anyway, or Wadell, I think is how you pronounce it. The left-handed starter with a little bit of major league experience, but mostly out of the bullpen. He's actually pitched well at AAA. So unlike Justin Hagenman, who came up and pitched well, and by the way, since Hagenman has gone down, he has been awful. Like, his last start, he gave up 7 runs in 2 innings. So I'll tell you this, he pitched well while he was here, but Hagenman is not an option because he also did it a few days ago. Brandon Waddell has never made a major league start, and he hasn't appeared in a major league game since 2021. But so far at AAA Syracuse, he's made 5 starts. He's pitched to a 1.54 ERA. He has 21 strikeouts and 23 1/3 innings. He's pitched well. And I think that's your easy, let's call up the veteran option. Now, here's the thing. Like, this 6-man rotation thing, it's going to have to continue as long as they want Senga to pitch on regular rest, because they're going to need another 6th starter on this stretch of games. Their next off day isn't until Thursday, May 8th. So if Brandon Wadell comes up, I assume he's not only going to make the start against the Arizona Diamondbacks on Wednesday, but then he's going to have to come back and face the Diamondbacks again in another week, unless the Mets want to kind of use this 6th spot for now as a rotating area. Paul Blackburn is recovering. He's on his way back. But the other option is Brandon Sproat. What would be interesting about going to Brandon Sproat, and for him it works days-wise, because you got to remember, if a guy pitched 2 days ago, they're not going to be available to pitch in that Wednesday game. So Hagenman is not available. Blade Tidwell is not going to be available. Like, there are just certain guys who, just based on when they pitched, they're not going to be available. So Brandon Sproat has pitched reasonably well down in the minor leagues, and it would be his 6th day because his last start was on April 24th. So if he comes out and starts on the 30th, there you go. It's a perfect symmetry of rest. And he was pitching really, really well. But his last start, 2 1/3 innings, 6 runs. So I don't know if the Mets would want to give him his major league debut off of a bad start, which is unfortunate. When he got bombed, I noticed it when it happened. I'm like, damn it, I don't know if the Mets are going to give him the one-off coming off a bad start. Now, you could look at it the other way and say, all right, the guy's made 5 starts at AAA. We'll tell him it's a one-off. Like, you're not staying up here. We just want to wet your whistle as a major league starting pitcher. We'd rather do it at home than on the road. So here you go. Make the start. Who cares that you gave up 6 runs in 2 1/3 innings against Worcester? Go ahead. I doubt they'll do it. I think because Wadell was a name mentioned recently when they made the Urena call, I'm going to assume he's going to make the Wednesday start. And then, again, that person or that spot in the rotation would have to make one more start before they can manipulate off days again, which they can start doing because they're off Thursday, May 8th. So Peterson on Tuesday, probably Wadell on Wednesday, Senga on Thursday, and then you're looking at Holmes, McGill, and Canning for the 3 games in St. Louis. David Peterson on Monday against Arizona, and then the following day, the second game of that 3-game series against the Diamondbacks, it would have to be either Wadell or maybe someone else to come in and take that slot as the 6th starter. So that's the pitching situation going into the Arizona series. As far as who they're facing, they're going to face Eduardo Rodriguez, the left-hander, in game 1 of this series with David Peterson on the mound. They're going to face Corbin Burns in game 2. I was looking at some of the career numbers Met players have against Corbin Burns. They got a lot of guys who own Corbin Burns. The Met players currently on the roster have hit a combined .349 with a 1,011 OPS against Corbin Burns. I'll give you some of the numbers. Lindor is 6 for 18. That's a .330 average with 4 RBIs, .333 average. Marte's 3 for 7. Brandon Nimmo is 6 for 15. That's a .400 batting average. Juan Soto 2 for 5. So not much to look at. And Pete Alonso is the guy who owns him. Pete Alonso is 6 for 15 with 3 home runs and 7 RBIs in his career against Corbin Burns. So Mets have a bunch of guys that have hit him, but that'll be who they face on Wednesday, the middle game of this series. And then they'll take on Zach Gallen, who's off to a very difficult start and is basically the opposite of Corbin Burns. He's got some great career numbers individually against the Mets in the finale of this series. But here we are, 20-9 and feeling fine as we head to these 3 games against the Arizona Diamondbacks and then 3 games in St. Louis and then out to Arizona to face the Diamondbacks again. This will be a challenge for the Met pitching because the Arizona Diamondbacks are a damn good offense. You know, one of the, I wouldn't call it knocks on the Mets because it's not their fault, but I guess one of the critiques of this Met team is, well, they're not exactly facing great teams. And by the way, a lot of that's true. They haven't faced a lot of great teams. The Arizona Diamondbacks are 2nd in the National League in runs scored. They're 2nd in home runs. And they're legitimate because last year they were the best offense in all Major League Baseball. So this is legitimately a very good offense. There's a lot of guys who are tough to pitch to. Corbin Carroll's having a bounce back here. Eugenio Suarez had the 4 home run game the other day. So this is going to be a challenge for the Met pitching staff. I'd be thrilled if they can win 2 out of 3. Unfortunately, they are probably due to lose the series at home, considering their 12-1 start, but certainly a challenge as they get set to take on the Arizona Diamondbacks. Any thoughts as these games are going on? Any strong opinions you have, whether agreeing or disagreeing with us? You can always email us at the ricob@gmail.com, the ricob@gmail.com. A couple of other quick notes before we get out of here. Ronnie Mauricio has begun his rehab assignment. That is great to see. Ronnie Mauricio being a factor as this season goes on would be a bonus. That's number 1. Number 2, I have to correct myself and give Gary Cohen, the official scorer, credit. On Friday, that triple play was a 3-6 triple play. What I did not notice was the tag of Ventos. So once Ventos is tagged, there's no need to throw it back. So I guess I have to change my scorecard. It's not a 3-6-3 triple play. It's a 3-6 BS triple play. Because that's what it is. It's a BS triple play. The other thing is Acuna. Luis Angel Acuna has obviously made a real good impact on this team. He's playing a lot. I continue to be surprised that Carlos Mendoza trusts the defense of Nimmo in left, McNeil in center, Acuna at second. Not about shifting Nimmo to center, because I get that. More, what do they think of Acuna in center? Do they think he's a butcher, or do they think Acuna is better than McNeil defensively at second, which he is? I wasn't ready to say that a few days ago, but you know what? The more I watch Acuna and the more I think of Jeff McNeil kicking a ball into the outfield, Acuna's probably better. So does that mean even if McNeil and Acuna are washes in center field, that's why they're doing it? I'm just curious why we haven't seen Acuna in center. Obviously, McNeil playing center field accomplishes the same goal, which is they're all in the lineup and Tyrone Taylor sits, which I'm good with doing every once in a while, especially if Acuna is going to make a positive impact on this team. So keep an eye on that as the days go on. If we do see any of Acuna in center, or if Mendy continues to trust McNeil in center, which we've barely seen him get any plays. In the first game he played in center field, there was not one fly ball to center field. Game 4 of this series, unfortunately, is a game I can't watch as close because I'm on the air, but it didn't feel like Jeff McNeil has had a lot of action to be tested in center field, but worthy of keeping an eye on as the Arizona series begins. Thank you very much for listening, downloading Rico Brogna. Remember to subscribe so anytime we do a Rico, it'll pop up right in your inbox. Thank you for listening to Rico Brogna.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Rico Brogna podcast. It's amazing, isn't it? Make sure you download it now to keep it on you at all times.